Ready, Mark?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Education meeting. Renee, roll call, please. Katine?
Dr. Cordolino?
Here.
Mr. Daughtry?
Here.
Mrs. Fano?
Here.
Dr. Modrak?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
Mr. Rappaport?
Here.
Mrs. Zuckerman?
Here.
Mr. Palma?
Here.
Mr. Grau?
Here.
Mr. Joe?
Here.
Mrs. Rossinow?
Here.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, please. At the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, I would ask that you please remain standing for a moment of silence for the youngster who passed away last week from our school system. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Continue the open public meetings law, please.
The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Montville Township Board of Education provided a public notice of this meeting, which included the time, date, and location. It was posted at the Montville Township Municipal Building, all Montville Public Schools, the Montville Public Library, the Montville Township Board of Education Administrative Office Building, the district website, and advertised in the Daily Record, the board's official newspaper, on January 9th, 2021.
Thank you very much, Katine. Our high school student representatives, why don't you go first, Natalie, this time? Elliot went first last time.
Sure. So I'm going to be talking about some past and future news at MTHS. So some past news, the MTHS Student Assistance Counselors hosted a webinar on Thursday, March 11th, providing guidance to parents on identifying mental health symptoms, how to best treat and support their students, and finding balance in school and extracurriculars. The MTHS Podium released their March edition, so showcasing different students who wrote articles about topics like virtual versus in-person schooling, the Montville School Musical, and the class of 2021 graduation. On Monday, March 15th, the virtual FBLA State Leadership Conference kicked off with its opening session. The Montville FBLA was fortunate enough to receive the following recognition awards, including Most Outstanding Chapter, 4th place in the state of New Jersey, and the Gold Seal Award of Merit. Some future events, the MTHS Key Club is currently collecting donations to create 200 Easter baskets for the Table of Hope in Morristown through Friday, March 19th, and there are bins outside of the rotunda doors for students to drop off donations. The MTTV club leaders are working on their upcoming documentary on COVID's effect on our community, so everyone should keep their eye out for that. The MTHS Spring Musical is coming, and it was announced that the MTHS Theater Company will present the musical Bright Star virtually on April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And the class of 2021 seniors are encouraged to check on the grade 12 Schoology page and click on the local scholarship classroom. There are a lot of scholarships coming up with deadlines. And this Friday, the Montville President Council Scholarship is due. And after the passing of the Montville Township student, Elliot and I just want to echo Dr. Rovitar and the school counseling's condolences to the family. And we encourage our peers to reach out to the counselors and also our peers to help each other through this difficult time.
Thank you, Natalie. Any questions for Natalie? Okay, thank you again. Elliot? Here you are.
All right. I'll be doing.
You're smiling. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm doing athletics. So in terms of the past, On March 3rd, Montville girls basketball versus Jefferson High School and won 41-38. And on March 6th, the boys basketball team defeated Mount Olive 61-43, finishing the season 9-2. This night was also the senior night, in which the seniors were recognized for the hard work and dedication they put in the program these past 4 years. On the same day, MTHS girls basketball won at Randolph 62-51 to finish the season 11-4. On March 10th, MTHS track and field hosted a meet against Parsippany High School. And congratulations to sophomore Tyler Polacek on rolling a perfect game. He is the fourth Mustang bowler in program history to earn a 300 banner. And lastly, a big congratulations to Morris County Player of the Year, Bella Vito, as voted on by the Morris County coaches. Is a very huge honor as there is only one. And in terms of future dates, tomorrow at 7 p.m., the Montville wrestling team will verse Mendham High School. Girls volleyball team will verse Chatham High School next Tuesday at 4 p.m. And on March 25th, the Montville wrestling team will verse West Morris Central at MTHS at 4 p.m. On Friday, March 26th, both boys and girls swimming will have a varsity meet versus Morris Knolls High School at 1 p.m. And lastly, on Sunday, March 27th, winter track will attend a varsity invitational at Chatham High School at 9 a.m. And good luck to all these teams competing. So that's all for sports.
Thank you very much, Elliot. I know the boys and girls basketball teams, even though they didn't play a lot of games, they were very successful, and I think both teams wound up in the top 10 in the suburban area. Congratulations to all of them, and thank you for your report. Any questions for Elliot?
I might add, the girls' basketball team finished in the top 25 in the state at number 23 for the season.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
All right. Superintendent's remarks?
The only thing that I wanted to call folks' attention to this evening is that this week we have made available the survey for those parents whose students are currently fully remote. If they would like their student to be able to return for in-person instruction during the fourth marking period, that survey is available in the Genesis Parent Portal, and it will close on Friday. So please, if you're interested in making that change, please make sure to complete the survey by Friday. And that's my report.
Thank you, Renee. Katine, anything business administrator's report?
We have been working on the tentative budget, which will be approved by the board at this meeting and then submitted to the county. The public hearing, which will be held on the budget for the 2021-22 school year, will be on the 27th of April. And we are beginning to lay out our construction projects at the various buildings for the spring and summer.
Thank you very much. Committee reports, finance, Karen? Karen?
You're muted.
You're muted, Karen.
Yeah, Karen, you're muted.
Okay, thank you.
There you
Pretty much what Katine said. We had a meeting just prior to the board meeting and just putting the finishing touches on the budget. And as she said, laying out facilities for the upcoming year.
Thank you. Curriculum, David?
No report at this time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think anybody else has met since last.
No other reports, no policy, communication, safety, nobody has met?
I don't think anybody has met.
Okay, school boards, Karen, you gave a report last time. Is something different this time, no? Yes?
Well, we did have a legislative committee meeting on last Saturday, at which Senator Vin Gopal attended and Mark Magyar from the State House, and they talked quite a bit about Senator Sweeney's introduction of a bill that would provide funding for school districts to conduct feasibility studies in terms of regionalization and consolidation. So I just wanted to report on that.
Thank you, Karen. Morris County School Board, Mike O'Brien.
Okay, I would ask your indulgence for this report because it might be a little longer than usual. The Morris County School Board's meeting was last Thursday, the 11th. As often was the problem, there was technical difficulties either on my end or their end. So I had the visual, but not the audio of some of the reports that were presented by the officials of the School Boards Association. But nevertheless, the important parts, more important, okay, was they presented the superintendent, the award for the superintendent of the year. And Dr. Cordolino and Dr. Rovtar were present at the meeting. I do not know the district, but it's Dr. Murillo who, I don't know the district. Was
Mendon-Borough.
What was that?
Mendon-Borough.
Mendon-Borough.
Yeah, and she was very, got a lot of praise for the things that she had done this year. Okay, so the most important part, I think, of the meeting was after the reports and the presentation. And Karen and Renee, if you want to add to anything I'm saying, feel free to do so or correct me on my interpretations of what they're saying. Mostly at that part of the meeting, two guest superintendents spoke at length about the changes in education pursuant to the COVID crisis. And to summarize, I think that we have learned an incredible amount. I'm paraphrasing them. We've learned an incredible amount through this crisis of the place of education and the delivery of education in our society. Now, this is on my own part an interpretation of historical interpretation. You know that wars and pandemics are among the major movers, catastrophic movers in history, and they always have great changes. And the question, going back to the superintendent's presentation, is what we have learned, and we don't know entirely what we have learned yet. Okay, it's a lot to be sorted out. What we have learned from the pandemic. And I think in summary, it's that education is going to change, in some people's opinion, drastically in coming decades. All right. They talked about virtual education, this term, virtual seat and small group education. Seat education means they're there in their seat. People learn differently. Some people thrive in seat education and some people thrive in virtual education. And there are others that small group education is the best thing for them. Okay, so we're on the cusp of big changes that may be permanent. We have delivered education for decades, if not hundreds of years, in the same fashion. There have been a lot of technology that's got into the classroom, but the seat education, the educator delivering the product to the students has my earbuds fell off. Hasn't changed that much. And that change, that is, there's prediction that that is going to change finally. Okay. Technology is going to be part of it, but all pandemics and all wars, they bring technological change. For example, the Second World War ushered in the atomic age. And, the Black Plague in Europe, there were changes in education and medicine in the Renaissance that came from that Black Plague. So we're in for some big changes. And I'm interpreting, but Renee and Karen, correct me if I'm not interpreting this correctly. There are going to be big changes, and we haven't sorted it yet. There was discussion about the adolescents, okay, and particularly the middle school and high schoolers. And we have known for a very long time that the way we deliver education to adolescents is not the healthiest of all choices. Over 50 years ago, when I started in Montville schools, we essentially began at 7:30 or 7:25 or 35, within 10 minutes. We're doing the same thing today when the pandemic started. And we know that's not healthy for young people. Anybody that's had a young person, for example, Ms. Fano and Mr. Palma, plays sports, that comes home at 6:30, 7 o'clock after football practice, people that are in the school play that have to go back. That is not a healthy lifestyle for an adolescent, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting on a bus, getting to school, going through his classes all day, doing whatever in between practice. The focus should be on healthy students, healthy families, and healthy communities. And there is the possibility that applying virtual education and seat education and small group education properly, we could have a healthier society and deliver education in a more efficient fashion in the decades to come. And this pandemic, correct me if I'm wrong, these superintendents would be in agreement with that these changes are going to come. Okay, am I interpreting correctly what was said? If Renee and Karen, you want to chime in on this? Because I think this is important for the board to know and boards going forward. Anything?
I think one of the big takeaways that I had from the discussion that evening, Mike, was one of the comments that Mackie Pendergrass made. He's the superintendent of the Morris School District, that he was so delighted to hear from a student who told him that he, during the course of the pandemic, had taken up a hobby. And how refreshing that was, that, students could find something new to be passionate about and to have that kind of rejuvenation away from the academic side of things. So I think, a lot of the talk did focus on, the way the pandemic has made us rethink a lot of things in very many different aspects of our life, and what we will take away from that.
And it will continue to.
Yeah, and the hobby is the time that it's released. The schedule of the student's day has been just turned upside down, okay, by the pandemic. And it is a very healthy thing. He expounded on how healthy it is for for a young person to pursue something other than just the academic day or sports, okay? So I want to, there was not a,
Can we wrap it up? Because we can come back at the end of the meeting, but usually the reports aren't this long. If you want to come back at the end of the meeting under old business, I'd be happy to. But I want to give everyone a chance, if you know what I mean. I don't know how much longer you'd like to talk, but
I'll keep it to like 45 minutes or an hour.
well, we can do that at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Don't
All
mind.
right.
If you don't mind.
I would just, one or two things more, but I will do that. I will do that at the end. Okay. I would say this was one of the most important school board's meeting, in summary, that I've been to in a long time. Leave it.
Great, thanks. Educational Services, Mr. Rappaport.
Yep, we met last week, and for the most of the meeting, we stepped through the budget for the 21-22 school year. And for the most part, the budget mimics what it is in this past year. A couple of changes. There's likely going to be a few fewer students attending the school, so that budget was cut a little bit. And the ESC is trying to wrap up or wind down operations for the direct transportation aspect. The direct transportation is where ESC owns the buses and owns the contracts for the drivers and employs the drivers for the buses. And the demand amongst the participant school districts has not been high enough to maintain that going forward. There's nothing to do with the coordination of transportation that they do with all the other routes that are contracted out to third parties. This is only for the direct transportation where the ESC actually has the hardware, the buses, and the people doing the driving. So that's going to be winding down as the existing contracts finish up. The other item was, unfortunately, they are moving to a cohort model for the school. They had a few too many staff members that needed to get quarantined in the last few weeks for a variety of reasons. So they're moving to a cohort model similar to what we had in our district prior to combining the cohorts 2 weeks ago. But they're going to have that cohort model for a few weeks until the staff quarantines have completed and they get enough staff back in the school, and then they go back to full-time again. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Michael. Any questions for Mike? Okay, drug awareness, Mike Palmer.
Yes, actually, we met on March 10th for the first time really since the pandemic. First of all, congratulations again to Joe Daughtry, who was reappointed as chairman of DAC. And second of all, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about the new marijuana law. Many of the members, as well as the committee in whole, I think, found it problematical in a number of ways, particularly with the way it's going to hamper law enforcement, particularly among the handling of young people who are in possession or use of marijuana. And the DAC encourages all community members to read and be aware of the new law and not be afraid to express your opinions about it. We are talking about our lawn sign fundraiser, which is going to, again, be our major fundraiser. And also there's a presentation March 24th virtually called Escape the Vape. And virtual, so hopefully everyone gets a chance to look at it.
What was the major fundraiser you mentioned, Mike?
Lawn signs.
The lawn signs.
Thank you. Any questions of Mike? Have you guys discussed project graduation, or is that not on for this year because of the pandemic?
There's really been no firm commitment made. Again, we really don't know exactly what the parameters are going to be. I could say something about
Okay.
graduation, prom, or anything else.
I know, Phil. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mustang Association, Mr. O'Brien?
The Mustang meeting was on Wednesday, March 3rd. And of course, they were reports by Mr. Guarino about sports update, and by Mr. Sanford, school update on the going back to more regular schedule at the high school. The major topic, aside from the reports, was about fundraising. And just want to make aware, the bricks, sportswear, and fans in the stands are the three major fundraising topics at this time. Anybody that wants to buy a brick can go on the website and sign up. And the Mustangs said that the athletic boosters, said that they would want to have some input if the occasion arises for the planned beautification of the outside of the high school. And that's it. Thank you.
Did you mention that they should go back to the principal, Mike, the Mustangs, or athletic?
I spoke with you
Yeah.
after that. I misspoke at the evening that evening. I called Mr. Sanford that they may be getting in touch with him, and I called the superintendent that they may be getting in touch with her about the beautification projects. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Liaisons, Cedar Hill,
No report.
Hilldale, no report. Valley View, Joe.
They had a meeting last Wednesday.
Okay. Christine Fano, Wason.
Yes, no report, but their next meeting is March 22nd at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Christine. Woodmont, Mike Palmer.
We actually met the day after our last board meeting. And again, first time in a while, pandemic, because of the pandemic. Mr. Esposito gave his rundown as to the state of the school. Everything's going very well. Talked about end of the year fundraisers and things such as that. And then that was just good to see everyone again.
Thank you, Mike. Middle school, either Dave or Michelle, or Michael Rappaport, rather.
No reports.
Either one. No report? Okay. High school,
No report.
Michelle Zuckerman, program, no report, okay. MTA negotiations, Karen, I know we haven't met since the last board meeting, but I think there's a meeting coming up, right?
Well, yes, we'll meet on March 22nd.
Okay. The administrators and supervisors, I've received suggestions from the administrative team. And if any board members on those committees, please get them to me by Friday, and I'll try to incorporate them into a proposal. Public participation is an opportunity for anyone to ask questions about anything on the agenda. Is the addendum on the agenda, Mr. Slunt? The appointment of the teacher?
No.
Now, we have an addendum under L3, number 12, appointment of a teacher at
Valley View.
Valley View School.
I would just indicate if anyone is watching us on YouTube and you'd like to participate in the public comment, there are directions to come over and join us in the Zoom webinar. If you are here in the Zoom webinar and you would like to make a comment, if you could raise your hand, we would recognize you. As Mr. Grau indicated, this public comment portion is targeted at items which are on the agenda.
And after this, there'll be an opportunity at the end for parents to ask questions on anything pertaining to the school system.
Kristen Lynch-Stambuli.
She doesn't.
She needs to upgrade her Zoom. I'm sorry. She actually put her hand down.
Okay, put her hand down. Okay.
We got one more.
Nick and Melissa Conturso.
Yes, hello?
Yes.
Hello.
So
Do you have a question?
just I guess a comment for Mike O'Brien with his meeting with the superintendents. Yeah, just yes, hello?
I'll give you an opportunity to come back, sir, but we just want to do the agenda at the present time, okay?
I think it was on the agenda, wasn't it? I'm speaking to something that.
No, it was a report. We're talking action item, but I'll make you the first speaker. Right?
All right, apologies.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the agenda, please?
Wait, you do have another question.
Do we have another question? I'm sorry.
Kristen Lynch-Stambuli.
Hello? Is there anybody there?
My question
You're there.
afterwards. This is like, people have to put little kids to sleep. Can we move this along?
I'm sorry?
Okay, well, if you don't have a comment on the agenda item, we're going to move through the agenda and then we'll have a second public comment period.
Okay? That's the way we do it all the time. All right, may I have a motion on the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second, please?
Second.
All right, any questions on anything on the agenda? Remember, we have the inclusion of the addendum, so that would be incorporated in the motion L3 number 12.
I would just like to make a clarification on the agenda.
Which one?
May I make a clarification on the agenda? Sure. Okay, on the agenda, M1, that's, there was a lot of Red Cross certifications. So there's a for the public edification, it says in pursuant of policies, numbers, so on. So we are getting all of our coaches certified in CPR. Is that correct or near correct?
Yeah, that is actually it's a requirement to have a current CPR certificate. So we are in the process of doing that.
Yes,
it's a lot more.
So for the public.
Yeah, it's not just the.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just coaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole bunch of them. Up to number 30.
Yeah. So the public knows that they will be certified in CPR, the coaches. Okay, that's all.
Yep.
Any other questions? 15, roll call, please.
Dr. Modrak?
Yes.
Mr. Palma?
Yes.
Dr. Cordolino?
Yes.
Mr. Daughtry?
Yes.
Mrs. Fano?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Aye.
Mr. Rappaport?
Abstain on M.1, item 36. Yes to everything else.
Ms. Zuckerman?
Yes.
Mr. Grau?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to skip around. I'm going to go to section S now, which is public participation. We'll come down to old business and new business. So we will now open it up to any questions. I know two people spoke before we took the agenda items. I know one of the gentlemen, I said he could go first.
Right, Mr. Conturso?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay, now you go, man.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for being out of turn. Just a comment on the superintendent's meeting that Mike O'Brien spoke about. I think I wasn't exactly sure where you were going with that, aside from, learning is going to change, and I'm sure we're all aware of that. But I don't think that in-school instruction prevents a student from getting a hobby. I think it's great that that particular student did that, but I don't think in school is something that prevents that. But it almost seemed as though you were leaning more toward virtual instruction, and I don't know. I think we can solve for both ways. So that's just a comment on that. But my question was really with regard to the recent stimulus package that was passed a few weeks ago by the administration. A lot of those funds were earmarked for school funding, and I wanted to check if Montville Township is aware if they would be eligible or qualify for some of those funds. And if so, is that something that we can utilize for next year's budget, which I know seems like it's in writing already, to be able to help with additional staff to get schools to full day instruction? Thank you.
I think you're right. There was a notice of some money in the paper last week. I'll let Mrs. Slunt refer to that, because I don't think we've gotten any official notification about anything at this point, right?
Correct. We have not received official notification of that funding. When we do, and they provide us with guidelines as to what it can be spent on, we will be able to provide more information.
And we'll share that with the public.
Okay. Do you think we will be getting funding though, or that you're still not sure of either?
The newspaper said we'd be getting funding of about 900,000+. But again, we don't know what it's all about. I know the town is getting $2,058,000. So I know that was in the paper. I don't know what the official notice is. I just go by what I've read in the ledger. Okay, but we haven't gotten any official notice on that yet, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And thank you.
Scott Riotto?
Good evening.
Hello.
Scott Riotto.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, good evening. Roxbury resident, MTHS history teacher, MTA president. Hope you and your families are well and preparing for spring soon, I hope. The Montville Township Education Association would also like to extend sincere sympathies and condolences to the family and friends of the Montville Township young person who passed away recently. My main question tonight is about the disturbingly high number of COVID positive cases associated with the high school this past week. As reported by Principal Sanford, there have been 30 cases just in the last 9 calendar days alone, including the 4 that just came in during the course of this meeting. That is a very concerning spike. Beyond the contact tracing the building administration is doing, what else is the district doing and the Township Health Department to ensure that those numbers come down and stay down? And what words of reassurance can the central administration and the board offer the staff who are understandably nervous and anxious about this most recent spike? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Obviously, it is a concern that we share. However, I think the most important thing to note is that with those cases, there have been no instances of in-school transmission. I think it remains a problem, particularly at the high school level, to a lesser extent at the middle school level, that students are socializing outside of school. They are not wearing masks. They're visiting each other at home. They're having parties. And as long as those kinds of activities continue to occur and people are a little bit lax in COVID protocols, I think cases will continue to occur. It's unfortunate. I know people are very weary of the pandemic and they think that it should all be over. I'd like to agree with them. However, we are not yet at that point. My best advice, particularly directed toward the students and their families, is to continue to be vigilant and to be respectful of the same protocols that you abide by in school when you are, connecting with other students in a social setting. I don't know that there's a whole lot more that we can say, but I am quite comfortable in the fact that we are not seeing in-school transmission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Rotar?
Mrs. Racharski?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Hi. My question is two parts, and it actually is a piggyback under what I believe his name was Mr. Koviad just asked regarding COVID. I know in past and in writing, you've said that the distance that is deemed healthy is between 3 to 6 feet apart, and 3 being more appropriate for the elementary level. Specifically at the high school level, though, I'd like to speak to that audience at this point. The CDC announced today that 3 feet would be an appropriate level distance. And so as we approach the 4th marking period, and even right now, what is the distance that would have someone be quarantined, say, for instance, if they were in a class at the high school and someone in that class tested positive? Would we be working off of a 3 foot? I would assume the desks are going to be appropriately separated.
As far as I know, neither the CDC nor the New Jersey Department of Health has changed the standard. I mean, I didn't see any news today. I've been working all day. But I do believe that the circle for close contact remains at 6 feet. So if there was a positive case that anyone in school had been exposed to, it would be within that 6 feet of contact.
Okay, so, and if that changes, I guess we'll get notification from you?
Well, I would say that we would, we would change our, the contact tracing, the parameters for contact tracing would, reduce to 3 feet, I guess. But I have not seen anything less than 6 feet with regard to contact tracing.
Yeah, well, and it's very new. I literally just heard it, 4:30 today that the CDC made this new announcement. But as a follow-up, now that we have so many people, teachers, aides, subs, adults, probably many of you that have been vaccinated and that are getting vaccinated, and soon enough we will have kids, particularly at the high school level, that will be able to be vaccinated. So what will the process be if you have a vaccinated person who's within the 6 feet? Would they be required to quarantine when really there is no reason for them to be quarantined if someone's positive? And how will you track that? Because if a teacher right now, say at this point, or an aide or a sub, or if anybody is vaccinated, there will be how will the school know? Will the kids, will the teachers have to submit their vaccine cards to the office to show that they don't have to quarantine? What will the process be with the Board of Health and through the district for that?
As far as I know, there is no process where we are collecting vaccine cards or copies of cards or anything like that. There is guidance with regard to people who have been vaccinated with regard to close contact, and that does mitigate the need to quarantine if people have been properly vaccinated.
But it doesn't mitigate the need for them to quarantine if they have been vaccinated for a period of 2 weeks prior to the exposure.
No, you have, I believe it's 3 weeks post second vaccine if you have a 2-dose vaccine for that vaccine to be completely operational.
Okay, so 3 weeks. So how?
So I guess I don't understand your question, Mrs. Richarski.
My question is, how are you going to know who's been vaccinated and who's not if someone in a classroom tests positive? Then if there's no reason for the whole classroom to be quarantined, and how would the district know who has been vaccinated and who has not?
That would be part of the contact tracing. And when that happened, people who were within the 6 feet would disclose that their vaccination status in order not to have to be quarantined.
Okay, so I guess that is the process. When they're told you have to not be in school because you're within the 6 feet, the person would tell the contact tracer, I had my vaccine a month ago.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
welcome.
Elise Care?
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My question's a little bit different, but just going back on what Ms. Richarski just said, I would assume that some HIPAA laws might come into play when asking, or if there would be a need to perhaps require staff to disclose that information.
Yeah,
Do you think that would be the case?
I do believe that there are some concerns there, and no one has indicated that districts can compel staff or students to disclose that information. So we're working within the parameters that the Department of Health and the Department of Education give us.
Okay, so my question goes back to the comment about the alarming number of cases at the high school. And you had indicated that there was no in-school transmission. What about all the sports teams and athletes that have recently contracted the virus in numbers on one team?
I can't speak to individual circumstances like that, unfortunately. There's a lot that goes into, that, whether, it's through contact tracing. Not every student that's quarantined is necessarily a positive case. But I can't discuss the individual cases like that.
Right. I guess I'm not asking you to discuss individual cases, but if there are numerous cases on one sports team, that's not necessarily considered in-school transmission. And if those students, or some of them are in person, then that's not considered a concern?
Again, if through the contact tracing, we are made aware of other circumstances where these students have been together, it's deemed not to be an in-school transmission.
Okay, that's just very concerning to me.
I really can't say, I cannot get into the details of the cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not necessarily asking that. I think there's a lot that's related to sports as well, not just students that, are going and hanging out with each other. And, when those students that are on sports teams then are hanging out, together afterwards, and, it just promotes more socialization as well. So I think it's a contributing factor.
Okay. And Dr. Rotar has tried to share with you the information she can share with you. I know recreation,
I understand that.
this last fall, recreation had several teams that season had to be complete, and our kids had to stay out of the middle school because they were on that team. So here they were being home in quarantine. It had nothing to do with the school. There was no in-school transmission. okay? And this happened with a couple of recreation programs. So there's an example of kids being out of school quarantine, but it was not for an in-school transmission.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for calling. For calling in.
Mrs. Wojciechowski?
Did she speak before?
She did.
Do we have anybody else?
No, this might be the last one.
Okay, we'll try it
I
again.
apologize. I want to make sure I understand. It's a follow-up to the last caller. So are you saying, and I understand it's not transmitted in the school, for instance, the recent occurrences at the high school where one person was infected privately and unknowingly brought that into the school and unknowingly brought that to the girls' volleyball team, whereby the girls' volleyball team was primarily all affected. And so my question is, were you saying that because it's a sports team and it's that's not considered in-school transmission because it's a sports team? And when you call in school, you're meaning specifically taking place in the building, in the classroom? I'm a little confused on what the definition of in-school transmission is.
I think in-school transmission would mean that that was the primary place where the contact occurred. I can't discuss the specifics, but as I stated in my previous comments, there is a lot of socialization outside of school that is taking place, and that is a problem.
I totally understand, and I absolutely agree, and I think it's awful, but I am still not sure that even if it occurred outside of school, the transmission took place while the child was on a MTHS sports team, in this case volleyball, whatever the team would be. And so that transmission took place to the other MTHS students via the volleyball team. So that's where I'm getting lost. Is the team not considered in school?
All right, just so you understand, Mrs. Wojciechowski, in-school transmission is not a determination that the school district makes. That determination is made by the Board of Health based on information that they receive through contact tracing. Today, as of this very moment, I have not received any indication that there has been any in-school transmission.
Okay, so how does the administration explain the whole sports team needing to be quarantined?
Anytime there's a positive case, if that person has been present with their teammates, it's an automatic quarantine. Okay. And we've had that on numerous. Don't point fingers at the volleyball team. We've had that on numerous sports teams.
Absolutely.
So, right.
I'm not. So that's how that was just the most recent one.
If a child was at practice and had contact within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes with their teammates, the whole team would need to be quarantined.
Exactly. So for the fact that they are at a school-sanctioned practice, that doesn't make it an in-school transmission?
It would if the Department of Health determined that it was so. We have not received that determination from the Department of Health.
Okay. I guess it's a Department of Health determination and not.
I did say that. Yes.
Okay.
It is not a school district determination.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I see no other hands.
Nobody else at this point? All right, we can go back to the board agenda if you'd like to go back to section Q, which is old business at this point.
Charlie, if I may, Charlie, if I may, I'd just like to thank those board members who have so far contributed and joined. More importantly, the Board of Education's team for the Relay for Life event. So thank you. And if there's anyone else that'd like to join the team, just reach out to me.
Okay, thank you, Karen, for sneaking in that little
comment.
advertisement. Anything else for old business? For Board of Ed old business?
No, it's really just kind of going back to what was being said about the sports teams. I'm just trying to put this a little bit in perspective. My understanding is that the sports teams, whether or not we're having in-person instruction or even if the school was all virtual, those teams are meeting anyway, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so really, I think that the determination, the critical factor here is whether or not having the students in school during the school day is spreading COVID. And I think what Dr. Ovtar has been saying is that there's been no evidence that having the students in school has in any way promoted the spread of COVID. There may be some spread during the sports teams, but those are happening anyway, regardless of whether or not we have in-school or out-of-school instruction. Am I hitting the important points?
The difference in what you're saying, Mike, is the difference is in-school transmission. That's what the lady was asking about. The Board of Health makes that decision, from what I understand. So we don't make that decision if it's in-school transmission or not. That comes from the Board of Health. That was the question that was brought up.
Right. I'm just saying that to date, I don't think there's been any evidence that having the students in school for class has contributed to the spread of COVID.
Okay. Anything else under old business? All right. Anything under new business? General board comment? Mike, would you mind, this is Mike O'Brien, would you mind continuing with your report at the next meeting for your Morris County School Boards?
I will.
It's only 2 weeks away.
I will continue at the convenience of any members at any time they want, because there were additional issues that if.
All right, how about on the 13th?
Whatever, okay?
April 13th, be a committee report for you, and we'll give you some time, okay?
Sure.
Anybody else before we adjourn? Any other comments? No hands been raised at all. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
To adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Signify by saying aye. Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you all very much for coming. Be safe out there. And we will see
Happy
you.
St. Patrick's Day.
And what is it?
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Someone said Happy St. Patrick's Day. I know that, I'm sure Mr. O'Brien will be celebrating that day tomorrow.
I celebrate every day. Every day is St. Patrick's Day for me.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you in a few weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.